Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be taking a look at a game from the 2024 the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League. Now this tournament is actually a very important and high-class tournament. So you can see that just by looking at the home page, we can see that in the men's section there's Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, and many more strong players. And in the women's section, there is Vaishali Ramesh Babu and also Ho Yifan. So they're actually this is a team tournament, so there are about first of all 2 men or 3 men I think, and then 2 women, and then and then contains a junior player. So the 2024 Global Chess League is the second season of Tech Mahindra's over-the-board team event. So there are also some online event as well. So it's teams, so it's a team event, and there are 6 teams in total, and they will compete in the second season of the Global Chess League. And each team consists of 6 players, with at least 2 women and 1 junior player. So the junior player has to be born in 2003 or later. And now, so these are the 6 teams. You guys can just basically quickly scan it. These are the players, and yeah. If I'm clicking each one too fast, you guys didn't see every player, you guys can actually pause this video and look more closely at the names. But I'm just going to quickly click every one of them. All right. So, and this tournament is from October the 3rd to October 12th. And we're not going to be watching this video because that'll take a lot of time. I mean, this is just a video to introduce the tournament. You guys can actually look at this video by clicking on watch here and then go to events, and you guys can find this homepage of the tournament. So also here's the prize, and it features a very high prize fund. So anyways, and actually this tournament has already started. Round 1 has already ended, and these are the results so far. The PBG Alaska Knights are in first place, and the Alpine SG Pipers, as well as the American Gambits. So they have won their first, these 3 teams have won in round 1. And yeah. So today, actually, already round 2 has started, and it is the Super Grandmasters versus the Momba Masters. But the games haven't started yet, and today we'll be taking a look at a game from round 1. Now, this game was played here with the Triveni Continental Kings versus the PBG Alaskan Knights, and it is this game. So it is Wei Yi versus Nodirbek. So Nodirbek is actually a very strong player from Uzbekistan, and well, I should have said his whole name. It's Nodirbek Abdusattorov. So Wei Yi versus Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and so Wei Yi is a very strong player from China, and actually I have played against him 2 times before, of course, in just for fun. He was playing, for example, about 10 players in a row, and I was just one of them. I lost 1 game, and the other one I count that as a draw because it was it didn't end due to some time limitations of that whole event. So but yeah, Wei Yi is a very strong player, and actually he is also pretty young, but probably Nodirbek is slightly younger than Wei Yi. But anyways, in this game, Nodirbek showed some very impressive skills, and he played a very accurate game. He scored an accuracy of 96.1 and won this game against Wei Yi. And let's see how he did that. So I think instead we'll be taking a look on Black's point of view here, because Nodirbek is Black. And let's see. So Wei Yi in the game played e4, and here Nodirbek played e5. So the king's pawn opening, and after knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4, the Italian game. And after knight f6, d3, bishop c5, c3, and d6. So especially in high class or between top players, the rule opus, the Italian game are all very common openings because, first of all, these types of openings are very solid, and it's actually because it's top players against top players, so it's not that easy for you to win because like your opponent will make a blunder or like blunder any pieces away immediately in the opening. So it's best for them to go very solid in the opening and then go into the middle game, into the end game where they need to like rely on their pure calculations. So that is the time where both sides are going to do their best to win. But of course, when top players versus top players, most of the times, if both sides doesn't make any blunders or mistake, it is likely going to end in a draw. So that is why they choose like the rule opus and the Italian game a lot. So anyways, here in the game, bishop g5 was played. Now actually this was an inaccurate move. I guess this is still in like Wei's home preparation because he played this move pretty fast. So I guess he is trying to play some sidelines or some inaccurate moves to get out of Nodirbek's home preparation and trying to confuse his opponent. So here the best, like the main line is to go knight bd2, just developing. And yeah, like very standard. But instead, in the game, bishop g5 was played, and the main problem with this move is that there's actually now h6. This is not played in the game, but actually h6 should have been played instead. And after bishop h4, if black is trying to go very aggressive, he can even go g5 immediately. And after bishop g3, even though like black's kingside pawns are already floating, but actually it's no problem with black. He can even have some long castle ideas in the future. But you can see that this bishop on g3 is now like pretty much misplaced, and probably black will go something like queen e7, bishop e6, and prepare for a long castle to launch and attack later on the king side. So this would be a very aggressive idea, but in the game, instead of going like following that very aggressive plan, Nodirbek here just played this very calm move, a6, which is also one of the best moves. And knight bd2 was played. So now in this position, both sides are just basically developing their pieces, following the opening rules, and nothing weird happened. Now in the game, bishop a7 was played because white is threatening to go b4 on the next move, and your bishop will have to drop back to a7 whatsoever, so it's also best for you to go to a7 right now and probably in the future prepare for some b5 ideas, knight e7, c5 ideas. So you might ask, why not go b4 here immediately? Well, here if you go b4, then after bishop a7, then knight bd2, even though this position may look like very similar to the ones like the position we've just saw, but actually here black can go h6. And after bishop e3, for example, or if you go, for example, like something like bishop h4, and then after g5, for example, bishop g3, knight h5, and let's say knight f1, knight e3 ideas. But in this position, you can see that what's the main problem is that white really doesn't have anything, and black is already launching a very scary attack on the king side, whereas for white on the queen side, even though his pawns are already like pushed forward, but they're kind of like floating in the air, and it's especially the c3 pawn is very weak, and it's best for white to first of all like go over with his development and then go for these kinds of attacks, because it is clear that in this position black is much faster in development and has a huge like bigger space. So a6 was played, knight bd2, but like these are just some details, some very like insignificant differences between these moves. Bishop e7 was played, short castle, and instead a4 here was played. So a4, so black is just playing very normally, and white is also playing very normally, trying to gain more space on the queen side. And I think here still h6 would have been the best move, and if white goes bishop h4, g5 here is actually still possible, because if you go, for example, bishop g3, now actually you can just go up with the king and start launching a kingside attack, because this position is actually like launching kingside attacks is very suitable for this position, because black is actually very easy. with the attack. After knight h7, for example, and f5 ideas, this king is very safe on g7, and it's not that easy for white to launch any d4 attacks in the center because this e4 pawn is too weak. And right now, this d4 square is well being defended by black's pieces. So this variation is possible or playable for black, but I guess it is just too aggressive, and probably Nodirbek doesn't want to doesn't want to do that. He just wants to play normal chess. In the game, he played knight e7. Now, this is actually not a normal move, I guess. I mean, knight e7, the main problem is that now there's bishop takes f6. And after g takes f6, even though I think Nodirbek, of course, definitely he calculated this idea, but I think his idea is to go king h8 and rook g8 to create some kingside attacks, or probably with f5, but I think you miscalculated, because now here white can actually go d4, and black's idea is just way too slow. Let's say king h8, but now, for example, I don't know, for example, rook e1, white is just going to develop, and really there's nothing for black on the king side, and his pawn structures are all basically damaged, and it's not that easy for black to improve. So I guess that is what Nodirbek had thought about, and he thought that maybe in that position he was better. So this is where his evaluation of the position have gone wrong. And 97, but in the game, where you probably thought that, okay, if I take and g takes f6, I lose the bishop pair, and probably black is going to be fine. So I don't want to make this exchange because I think I'm not going to be better if I do that. So instead, in the game, he played knight to h4. And threatening to go knight f5 on the next move to open up positions, and also probably king h1, f4 ideas in the future. In the game, bishop g4 was played. Now remember, white cannot go f3 because of this bishop. It is pinning this pawn and the king, so it's very annoying, and that is why here white played queen e1, and after king h8 here white played king h1 to get away from this very annoying pin, and in the future threatening to go f4. Now this bishop is actually a little bit misplaced, and I think it's best for it to retreat back to e6 at some point. So after king h1, knight fg8 was played. Now this is actually a very creative idea founded by Nodirbek. So his idea of 97 is not only just trying to lure white to take on f6 or go knight g6, but his idea is actually to go knight fg8 and kick this bishop and then go f5. So it's actually a very creative idea of his. And now if white were to take on f6, it's a black move. So white here, let's say white takes on e7 then, and after queen e7, for example, this knight, first of all, is misplaced. And if you go, for example, like knight f5, there's bishop takes f5, and after g takes f5, even though the positions are closed up, are opened up, and white is about to go f4, but now, unfortunately, black can go queen g5 to prevent all of these attacks by white, and also gobble up this f5 pawn. Alright, so that is the idea of knight fg8 and what happens after bishop e7. So here, white obviously cannot take, and it's best for him to retreat back to e3 here, which was not played in the game but should have been. So here it is best to trade this a7 bishop off, because it is clear that, first of all, you evaluate the position and you can see that in white's territory, this bishop, this dark square bishop, is it is outside of his pawn chains, but it's not really active because it doesn't really attack anything. It's he only gives this very annoying, not that annoying, but he only gives this useless pin here, and he can't even take on e7 because that is not good for white, and black always have some f6 ideas later on to kick this bishop back. So this bishop does not count as a good bishop. And let's take a look at this dark square bishop on black side. It's only gaining control of one diagonal, but this diagonal is already enough for this bishop because, first of all, it is on a very safe square where basically none of white's pieces can really attack it. And second of all, this is a good diagonal. All of the dark squares are free for the bishop. are all very important for the bishop. He puts pressure on the f2 pawn and also like somehow prevents white from going f4. So that's why white needs to go king h1, but that will be wasting a move. So this bishop is actually much more active than this bishop, and it's pretty reasonable for white to trade it off. And here probably black will just take it, and after queen takes e3, probably black will go something like knight c6. And in this position, I guess it is just a very like equalized position. Probably it will end in a draw, but yeah. But in the game instead, where he played h3, he wanted to get this bishop out of the way. But now after bishop d7, which was played in the game, retreating the bishop back, now queen e2. Now he is not playing bishop e3 yet. But, I mean, here bishop e3 immediately is okay, and yeah. But after queen e2 and f6, here the bishop basically just has to go to e3. And after bishop takes e3, queen takes e3 was played. Now, why not go f takes e3? Because f takes e3, even though this pawn structure might look pretty strong because the e pawn and the c pawn all supports d4, and the pawn also controls the f4 square. But actually, after f takes e3, there is now, for example, like knight h6. Now, it's not that easy. First of all, it's not that easy for white to push d4 because after d4, black will just probably ignore you and go attack this e4 pawn. Second of all, this pawn here actually somehow blockades white's development route. Like, white was having some knight f1, knight e3, knight f5, or knight d5 ideas, but now it just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all because this pawn blockades the square and prevents white from having that opportunity to activate the knight. So this is the main problem. And taking with queen e3 also still preserves the idea of f4. So in the game, queen takes e3 was played. And after queen e8, bishop b3, queen h5, knight hf3, and f5. And after takes, knight takes, and already this position, black is getting a lot of counterplay on the king side. You can see that his pieces, his knight especially, is already out of the pawn chains and attacking. Like, it's very useful piece. And of course, in this position, you can just quickly calculate some lines and evaluate this position, and it's clear that if you're gonna choose a side to play in this position, it is definitely you're definitely gonna choose black, because here black is the side who is much easier to play with. So you can just even first of all, you take a look at black's point of view, and then you take a look at white's. And you can see that white's pieces are all pretty passive, and it's not that easy for white to find a plan. So here queen g5 was played. White noticed this problem and now offers a queen trade. But of course, Nodirbek is not going to trade the queens off, because once if he did that, then probably in this position he will lose all of the advantage that he had, because when you're having some advantages, especially positional advantages, it's best for you to keep the queens or the major pieces on the board. Keep as many pieces on the board as possible, because once if you traded too many pieces, then changing into endgames or simplified positions, then it's not that easy for you to increase the pressure or increase the attack on your opponent. So that is the main problem. Alright, so in the game, that's why queen e8 was played and knight e4. Now, this knight might look a little bit scary on e4 because it does stand on a very nice spot, but actually it is not as good as the f5 knight, because now black can actually go knight f6 to offer a trade of knights. And white says, okay, if you're trying to trade my good knight off, I'm going to try to use my knight to trade off your knight. And in the game, he played knight to g3, offering a trade of knights. And here, Nodirbek played h6 first, attacking the queen. And after queen d2, he said, okay, if you're trading my knight, and I guess I can't move it anywhere. If I go retreat it back to e7, that is not going to be good, because my pieces are now getting a little bit passive. But I also don't want to take on g3, because even though you do have a double pawn, but it's a like a healthy double pawn, and you no longer have the f2 weakness and the f4 weakness. So I'm not going to take your knight nor retreating back. What I'm going to do here is actually to put my 2 knights to put pressure on this g3 point, and I'm going to play knight h5. So knight h5 is played in the game, and here where he played king h2, like defending the g3 knight. If he had taken on f5, then unfortunately there's rook takes f5. And of course, if you take with the bishop, you're gonna fall into white's trick. And actually here, after bishop takes f5, the main problem is not g4, because g4 is actually not playable here, because after takes, there's rook f3, and this is gonna be close to mate. But what white can do here is, like, if white takes and bishop takes f5, what white can do here is actually to go knight h4. And you can see that now after this bishop goes back to d7, this position is suddenly not that clear for black to find any ideas, because these 2 knights are basically like playing mirror chess. They're on the same spots, like just a mirror. So, but now let's compare these 2 bishops. And I think that this light square bishop in white's territory is slightly more active than black's bishop, because it does stand on a very great diagonal. So that is the main problem, and it's not that clear for black to improve. So that is the main problem with bishop takes f5, and that is why you take with the rook. And after, for example, like in this position, I'm not really sure what white can do here, because he is kind of like getting out of ideas. Let's say if he tries to develop his rook, but actually it doesn't work, because there's rook takes f3, and after g takes f3, bishop takes h3, and after rook g1, queen e7 threatening queen h4, and this should be winning. Yeah, it should be winning, because after rook e4, there's bishop f5, and if you go, for example, like something queen e3, and after takes, queen takes, this position is definitely gonna be like a black's winning position, because this knight is just much more active than the bishop after knight to f4, and this queen is also in too much danger. Alright, so let's go back to the game, and after king h2, knight f4, d4, bishop c6, bishop d1. Now this is the first mistake, not the first, but one of the most important mistakes in this game, because after bishop d1, now black is gaining a lot of opportunities here. I think I know what way he is afraid of. He is afraid of bishop f3, because then it will damage his pawn structure, but I guess d5 is better here. Because, I mean, d5 is actually not a very hard move to spot. You kick this bishop away and make it retreat back to d7. I mean, it's not a hard move to spot, but instead, probably he thought that bishop d1 was a better option, because after bishop takes f3, there's bishop takes f3. But here in the game, queen g6 was played. Now you can see as suddenly all of black's pieces are looking at white's king side, and especially the g2 pawn. The queen is taken, indirectly putting pressure on it. The knight, the bishop are all putting pressure on it. And now this is a very dangerous position for white, because this knight can no longer move, and it's just very hopeless. I mean, black is still not winning yet, but of course black has a lot of advantage, but still white can defend this position if he played the right moves. And the best move here is to go rook g1, which is very logical, just to defend the g2 pawn, but in the game Wei instead played rook a3. And now this is he made 2 mistakes in a row. Now, probably he thought that there was some c4 ideas, and he could use this rook to defend on the 3rd rank, and it's actually not a bad idea, but it's just too slow in this situation, because there's now knight takes g2, a brilliant move actually, but it's just like a tactic, and Nodirbek found the tactic, the only move here to win, and it's knight g2, and after d5, because the main point here is you cannot take on g2, because now there's knight h4, and it's important that this knight cannot take, because this bishop is pinning the knight and the king. So after that, I mean, black is just gonna be winning, like easily winning. And that is why in the game after knight g2, d5 was played, trying to blockade this diagonal here, but it doesn't work because there's just bishop takes d5, and after queen takes d5, knight takes g3, Nodirbek is calculating all of these lines very accurately, and after rook g1, so Wei is trying to defend in the best way, like trying to create some obstacles, like to slow down Black's winning idea, but it doesn't really work because there's knight f4 played in the game, attacking a queen, and after queen b7, because here if you take on rook g3, there's now just queen takes g3, and no matter which one you take with, let's say you take with the king, now there's knight d5, and Black is just simply up half a piece as well as a bunch of pawns, and this should be easily winning. So in the game, queen b7 was played, and let's see how Nodirbek won this game in a very beautiful way. Knight f1 check. So the main point is that you cannot take here because there's queen g2 mate. And here, king h1 was played, queen f5, threatening take on h3, rook g4, blockading this idea. And after knight h3, knight h4, knight f2 check, king g1, now Black is just basically gobbling up all the pieces and the pawns, and after king h1, queen f2, probably a better idea here would be to go like queen b1, but it doesn't matter, queen f2 is also okay, and after knight g6 check, king h7, knight takes, rook takes, even though here, like you might say Black is like White is up half a piece, but it doesn't matter here because this king is just in way too danger. This knight, like these two knights and the queen are already on his face, like in front of him. And after queen g2, trying to offer a trade of queens, and of course you're not going to take because once you take and trade into an endgame, all of the winning opportunities will be gone. So in the game, queen e1 was played, and now after bishop c2, king h8, so don't forget that it's a check. You go king h8 first, and after queen h3 here, knight g3, and here Wei resigned because this is like mating ideas are just unstoppable. If he goes king h2, there's just queen h1, and after king takes g3, rook f3 check, and after king h4, queen takes h3 is mate. And if you go here, for example, like king g2, now there's queen f2, which is mate in 1. So this was actually a very brilliant game. You can see that in the end. So before like all of the drama happened, or like before Wei made a bunch of mistakes, both sides actually played pretty accurately. But in the end, after Wei made the bishop d1 and the rook a3 mistakes, I mean, he is somehow in time trouble and didn't found the best defending moves. I mean, when you're the defending side, it's actually like you're having a lot of pressure because both time pressure as well as the position, because your opponent is just attacking and throwing all of his pieces on your face, and you just have to find the best defending ways to save the position. Not winning, even like you can only save a draw, and it's not that easy. So Nodirbek here, he played all of the best moves at the end, and this shows that he is a very strong player and he knows how to win whenever his opponent made mistakes in the best way. So I hope you guys learned something from this game. I think this game was played like really well, especially by Black. So I hope you guys like this video. You can comment down below to tell me, and please subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye!